The stars looked different today. Grand Admiral Kyosung stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the endless darkness of space. Behind him stretched the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. 12,000 ships moved together like a metal ocean, each one carrying enough weapons to destroy a planet. Kyosung had done this many times before. For 300 years, he had led the Valerian Empire's fleets across the galaxy. Every world they found either joined the Empire or burned to nothing. No species had ever fought back successfully. No one ever would. "Admiral, we have reached the target system," said Commander Byung-ho, his second in command. The younger officer looked at the screen showing a small yellow star ahead. "The planet they call Earth is the third one from their sun." Kyosung nodded slowly. Earth looked so ordinary on their sensors. Just another blue and green world, spinning quietly around its star. The humans living there had barely learned to travel between planets. Their technology was weak, their weapons simple. This would be easy. "What do our scouts tell us about these humans?" Kyosung asked. Byung-ho pulled up the intelligence reports. "They have small ships with basic plasma weapons. Their planet has some defense satellites, but nothing serious. They only learned to communicate faster than light 50 years ago. We estimate complete conquest in less than 6 hours." The Admiral smiled. 6 hours seemed too long. Most species surrendered when they saw the Valerian fleet approaching. The smart ones gave up without a fight. The stubborn ones were crushed quickly. "Any signs they know we are coming?" Kyosung asked. "None, Admiral. Their communication networks show no panic. They appear to be going about their normal lives. Some of their ships are even flying regular trade routes. Far away in the outer edges of the solar system, things were not as quiet as they seemed." Admiral Dongmin sat in a command center hidden deep inside an asteroid. The room was filled with screens showing every ship in the Valerian fleet. Human technology had been watching them for months as they traveled across space. 12,000 ships, K, said Captain He-jin, standing beside him. "That's more than we expected." Dongmin studied the enemy formation. The Valerian ships moved in the standard pattern used by conquering fleets. They expected no real resistance. They thought humans were just another weak species to be enslaved. "Are our preparations complete?" Dongmin asked. "Yes, sir. All defense platforms are ready. The stealth fields are working perfectly. They have no idea what's waiting for them." Dongmin had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. Humanity had been getting ready for alien invasion for over 2 centuries. Ever since they first detected signals from other worlds, they knew someone would eventually come looking for them. The plan was simple. Let the galaxy think humans were weak and primitive. Build the real defenses in secret. When invaders came, destroy them so completely that no one would ever know what happened. On Earth, Dr. Taeho watched the approaching fleet from his laboratory buried deep under the ocean. Around him, scientists worked at computers controlling weapons the Valerians could not even imagine. Humanity had learned from studying 43 different alien civilizations. Every species that had tried to conquer others eventually faced the same fate. "How long until they reach the inner system?" Dr. Taeho asked his assistant. 14 hours at their current speed, replied Dr. Minsu. "They're not trying to hide their approach." Very confident, Dr. Taeho nodded. Confidence would be their weakness. The Valerians had conquered so many worlds that they expected every battle to be easy. They had forgotten that sometimes the prey fights back. Commander So-young stood on a space station that did not officially exist. From the outside it looked like empty space. Human stealth technology made it invisible to every sensor the Valerians possessed. Around her, weapons officers prepared systems that could tear holes in reality itself. "Begin charging the quantum disruption array," So-young ordered. "Set power levels to minimum effective range. We don't want to accidentally damage our own solar system." The weapons would fire when Admiral Dongmin gave the order. Until then, they waited and watched. The Valerian fleet continued its approach, completely unaware of the trap closing around them. Captain Wu Jin commanded a ship that the enemy could not detect. The dreadnought Prometheus floated in space like a ghost, its hull made from materials that bent light around it. Inside, his crew checked weapons that could destroy stars if aimed correctly. "Sir, the enemy is beginning their final approach," reported his weapons officer. "Shall we move to attack position?" "Not yet," Wu Jin replied. "Let them get closer. The Admiral wants them to feel completely safe before we show them the truth." The truth was that humanity had surpassed every other species in the galaxy. While aliens fought each other with crude energy weapons and metal ships, humans had learned to manipulate the basic forces of the universe. Time, space, matter, and energy were all tools in their hands. Back on the Valerian flagship, Kyo-sung prepared his invasion speech. He would offer the humans a chance to surrender. Most species took it. The ones who refused were destroyed as an example to others. "Open a communication channel to the human homeworld," he ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." Kyo-sung straightened his uniform and looked into the camera. "People of Earth, I am Grand Admiral Kyo-sung of the Valerian Empire. Your world is now under Imperial control. Surrender immediately, and your species will be allowed to live as servants. Resist and face complete destruction. You have 1 hour to respond." The message traveled across space toward Earth. On every human military station, officers smiled as they heard it. The Valerians had just made their final mistake. Admiral Dongmin received the ultimatum in his command center. Around him, his staff waited for orders. The enemy fleet hung in space like a cloud of metal insects, weapons charged and ready to attack what they thought was a defenseless world. "Send our response," Dongmin said calmly. The return message was simple. Fleet Admiral Jiwoo appeared on screens across the Valerian fleet. She looked calm and relaxed, as if talking to neighbors instead of invaders. "Thank you for coming so far to visit us," she said with a smile. "Your timing is perfect. We've been looking for something to test our new defensive systems on." The communication ended. In the silence that followed, Kyo-sung stared at his screens in confusion. No species had ever responded to a surrender demand with gratitude. Something was very wrong here. "Admiral," said Commander Byung-ho, his voice worried, "our sensors are detecting some unusual energy readings." "What kind of readings?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to be coming from empty space." Kyo-sung looked at the tactical display. Space around his fleet looked empty, but the sensors were picking up massive power signatures from nowhere. It was as if the darkness itself was waking up. "Battle stations," he ordered. "Charge all weapons." Something is not right here. The trap was about to close. The Valerian fleet moved closer to Earth, their sensors showing exactly what they expected to see. A few dozen human ships floated in space ahead of them, looking old and weak. The metal hulls were rough and simple, nothing like the smooth, advanced designs of Imperial warships. "Look at those primitive vessels," Commander Byung-ho said with a laugh. "They probably still use chemical rockets for power." Admiral Kyo-sung studied the human ships on his main screen. They were broadcasting surrender messages on all frequencies, begging the Valerians to spare their planet. It was the same pathetic display he had seen from hundreds of other species. "How many ships do they have?" Kyo-sung asked. 43 vessels, Admiral. All appear to be civilian transports with basic weapons attached. "No real military vessels detected." The Admiral nodded. 43 ships against 12,000. The humans were either very brave or very stupid. Either way, they would be dead soon. What the Valerians did not know was that the ships they were looking at were empty. No humans were aboard them. They were controlled by computers, designed to look exactly like the primitive vessels the galaxy expected Earth to have. The real human fleet was invisible, scattered throughout the solar system in ships that bent light and energy around them. Captain Wu Jin's dreadnought Prometheus hung in space just a few kilometers from the Valerian flagship. Completely undetected, deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, Dr. Taeho watched the enemy approach from his command center. The room was carved from solid rock 3 kilometers under the seabed. Banks of quantum computers lined the walls, their screens showing the positions of every Valerian ship. "Phase 1 is working perfectly," Dr. Taeho told his team. "They see exactly what we want them to see." Dr. Minsu looked up from her console. "The enemy is charging their weapons. They plan to destroy our decoy ships as a demonstration." "Let them," Dr. Taeho replied. "The more confident they feel, the better." Commander So-young stood on her hidden space station, watching the Valerian fleet through sensors that could see through their stealth fields and energy shields. Her weapons were ready, but she waited for the order to fire. "Ma'am," her tactical officer reported, "the enemy is moving into standard attack formation. They're preparing for a quick battle." "How long until they're in position?" So-young asked. 6 minutes at current speed. So-young smiled. In 6 minutes, the Valerians would learn that they had made a terrible mistake. But first, humanity would let them feel completely victorious. Admiral Dongmin sat in his asteroid command center, watching 12,000 enemy ships arrange themselves for battle. Each Valyrian vessel carried enough firepower to level a city. Together they could burn the surface off a planet. "Admiral," Captain Hyojin said, "all defense platforms report ready. The enemy is moving exactly as predicted." Dongmin had studied Valyrian battle tactics for decades. They always did the same thing. First, they destroyed a few enemy ships to show their power. Then they demanded surrender. If the enemy refused, they attacked with overwhelming force. "Begin Phase 2, Dongmin ordered. "Activate the outer ring." Across the solar system, space began to change. What looked like empty darkness was actually filled with millions of defense platforms, each one smaller than a car but armed with weapons that could crack planets. Human technology had learned to fold space, hiding entire fleets in dimensions the Valyrians could not detect. On the Valyrian flagship, warning lights began flashing. "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "we're detecting massive energy spikes throughout the system." Kyosung frowned at his tactical display. Red dots were appearing everywhere, showing power sources where none had existed moments before. "What are those readings?" "Unknown, sir. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. Could they be natural phenomena, solar flares, or cosmic storms?" "Negative, Admiral. The patterns are too organized. These appear to be artificial constructs." Kyosung felt the first touch of worry. In 300 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. "How many contacts are we detecting?" 17,000 and climbing, sir. They're appearing faster than our computers can count them." Captain Wu Jin listened to the confused chatter from the Valyrian fleet through intercepted communications. His ship's invisibility field kept the massive dreadnought hidden even as it moved closer to the enemy flagship. "Sir?" his weapons officer said. "Shall we target their command ship?" "Not yet," Wu Jin replied. "Let them understand what they're facing first." The Prometheus was just one of humanity's hidden weapons. Scattered throughout the solar system were ships and stations armed with technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than rules. Quantum disruptors that could erase matter from existence. Gravity manipulators that could crush ships into points of light. Time dilation fields that could slow enemy vessels until they seemed frozen in space. Admiral Kyosung stared at his screens as more and more contacts appeared. Space around his fleet was no longer empty. It was filled with human defensive installations, each one radiating power levels that seemed impossible. "How did they hide all this?" he asked. Commander Byung-ho checked the sensor records. "Sir, these installations weren't here 10 minutes ago. They appear to be materializing out of empty space." "That's impossible. You can't hide fleets in nothing." "With respect, Admiral, we're looking at proof that someone can." Dr. Yoonji worked at her console in the Pacific Command Center, monitoring the space-folding generators that kept humanity's true strength hidden. Her technology could bend the fabric of reality, creating pockets of space that existed outside normal dimensions. "Dr. Taeho," she reported, "the enemy is beginning to understand their situation. Their communication networks are showing signs of panic." "Good," Dr. Taeho replied. "Fear makes people make mistakes." The Valyrian fleet tried to retreat, but found that space itself had changed around them. What should have been empty darkness now felt thick and heavy, like trying to move through syrup. Their ships slowed despite their engines running at full power. "Admiral," the navigation officer reported, "we're encountering resistance. Space seems to be different here." Kyosung looked at the readings. According to his instruments, the fundamental structure of space-time had been altered in a sphere around his fleet. They were trapped in a bubble of modified physics, unable to retreat or advance quickly. "How is this possible?" he demanded. No one had an answer. The Valyrian Empire had conquered thousands of worlds, but they had never encountered technology that could rewrite the basic laws of the universe. Commander So-young watched the trapped enemy fleet from her hidden station. The Valyrians were trying to break free of Dr. Yoonji's spatial manipulation field, but their engines were not designed to work in modified space-time. "Ma'am," her communications officer said, "Admiral Dongmin is requesting a status report. Tell him Phase 2 is complete. The enemy is contained and ready for Phase 3. Admiral Dongmin received the report in his asteroid command center. Around him, his staff waited for the final order. The Valyrian fleet was trapped, confused, and beginning to understand that they had walked into something far beyond their comprehension. "All stations, this is Admiral Dongmin," he announced over the command network. "The enemy has seen our true strength. They know they have been deceived. Now they will learn the price of threatening humanity. On every human vessel and station, weapons officers placed their hands on firing controls. The galaxy's most advanced military force prepared to demonstrate why Earth had never been conquered. Commence Phase 3, Dong Min ordered. Show them what humans are truly capable of. The real battle was about to begin. Admiral Kyo Sung stood on his bridge, staring at the impossible. His fleet of 12,000 ships was surrounded by millions of human defense platforms. Each one glowed with power that his sensors could barely measure. The empty space he had expected to find was actually a carefully prepared trap. Send another surrender demand to the human homeworld, he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. Tell them we will destroy their planet if they don't stand down immediately. Commander Byung-ho looked uncertain. Admiral, our sensors show their defensive capabilities far exceed our initial estimates. Perhaps we should consider negotiation. Negotiation? Kyo Sung's voice turned hard. The Valerian Empire does not negotiate with primitives. Send the message. The communication traveled across space to Earth's government centers. In conference rooms and military headquarters around the planet, human leaders received the Valerian threat with calm smiles. They had been waiting for this moment for generations. Fleet Admiral Ji-woo sat in her command center beneath the mountains of Korea. Around her, screens showed the tactical situation in perfect detail. The enemy fleet was exactly where humanity wanted them, trapped in modified space and surrounded by weapons they could not comprehend. Open a channel to the Valerian flagship, Ji-woo ordered. Her image appeared on screens throughout the enemy fleet. She looked relaxed and confident, like someone discussing the weather rather than facing an invasion force. Admiral Kyo Sung, she said pleasantly, thank you for bringing your fleet to our solar system. We've been preparing a demonstration of our defensive capabilities, and you've provided the perfect test subjects. Kyo Sung felt confusion and anger rising in his chest.
Test subjects?
You dare mock the Valerian Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Yes, we know, Ji-woo replied. We've been studying your methods for quite some time. Your tactics are predictable. Kyo Sung stepped closer to his communications screen. We have 12,000 warships armed with planet-killing weapons. Your entire species will be extinct within the hour. Ji-woo's smile widened. Admiral, you seem to misunderstand the situation. You're not the predator here. You're the prey. The transmission ended, leaving Kyo Sung staring at a blank screen. Around the bridge, his officers looked confused and worried. No species had ever spoken to the Valerian Empire with such confidence. Captain Woo Jin received his orders aboard the invisible dreadnought Prometheus. The massive ship hung in space just kilometers from the Valerian flagship, its quantum stealth field making it undetectable to enemy sensors. Weapons officer, Woo Jin said calmly. Select one of their cruisers, something in the middle of their formation. Charge the quantum disruptor to minimum power. Minimum power, sir? The weapons officer looked surprised. That's enough to destroy a moon, I know. We're making a point, not starting a war. Fire when ready. The quantum disruptor was humanity's newest weapon, developed from studying the fundamental forces that held atoms together. Instead of simply destroying targets with energy or explosives, it convinced matter that it no longer wanted to exist. A beam of twisted space shot out from the Prometheus, invisible to normal sensors but deadly beyond imagination. It struck a Valerian cruiser in the center of their formation. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the cruiser simply disappeared. No explosion, no debris, no energy flash. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. The matter that had made up the ship, its crew and its weapons had been converted directly into energy and scattered across dimensions. On the Valerian flagship, alarms screamed. Admiral! The tactical officer shouted. The cruiser dominator is gone. Gone? What do you mean gone? I mean it no longer exists, sir. Our sensors show empty space where it used to be. Kyo Sung looked at his tactical display. A red dot that had represented 800 crew members had vanished. No wreckage, no distress signals, no trace that a ship had ever been there. How? He whispered. Dr. Tae-ho monitored the test from his underwater command center. The quantum disruptor had performed exactly as designed, erasing a target from existence without affecting anything around it. The weapon represented decades of human research into the nature of reality itself. Perfect accuracy, he reported to Admiral Dong Min. No collateral effects detected. The surrounding enemy ships are undamaged. Excellent, Dong Min replied. Begin the main demonstration. Across the solar system, human defense platforms came online. Each one was small enough to hold in your hands, but armed with weapons that could shatter asteroids. Millions of them surrounded the Valerian fleet like a cloud of deadly stars. Commander So Young watched from her hidden space station as the defense network activated. Power flowed through quantum channels, charging weapons that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions the Valerians had never discovered. All platforms report ready, her tactical officer announced. We have target locks on every enemy vessel. Hold position, So Young ordered. Let them try to fight back first. The Valerian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and projectile weapons filled space with deadly light. Their most powerful weapons, designed to crack planets, struck the human defense platforms with enough force to level mountain ranges. The beams passed harmlessly through the platforms as if they were made of empty air. Human defensive technology had learned to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making conventional attacks useless. Admiral, the Valerian weapons officer reported in a shaky voice, our attacks are having no effect. The enemy platforms appear to be immune to our weapons. Kyo-sung watched his fleet's most powerful guns fire uselessly at targets that refused to be destroyed. What kind of shields are they using? Unknown, sir. Our weapons are passing through their platforms as if they're not really there. Dr. Yunji smiled as she monitored the enemy's futile attacks from Earth's command center. Human defensive technology didn't use shields in the traditional sense. Instead, the platforms existed in a state of quantum superposition, allowing them to be solid when firing and incorporeal when being shot at. They're learning that conventional physics don't apply to human technology, she told Dr. Tejo. Good. Now, let's show them what does apply. Admiral Dongmin opened the fleet-wide communication channel. All units, this is Admiral Dongmin. The demonstration phase is complete. The enemy has seen our defensive capabilities and found their weapons useless. Commence final phase. Show them the true power of humanity. Captain Wu Jin received the order aboard the Prometheus. Around him, his crew prepared weapons that could reshape reality. The Dreadnought's main battery was designed to fight enemies that normal physics couldn't touch. Target the enemy flagship, Wu Jin ordered. Full power to the reality anchor cannon. The weapon charged with power that made space itself tremble. Unlike the quantum disruptor that erased matter from existence, the reality anchor forced targets to exist in only one dimension, making them vulnerable to conventional destruction. Sir, his weapons officer reported, we have a lock on their command ship. Shall I fire? Wu Jin looked at the tactical display. The Valerian flagship hung in space like a metal mountain, bristling with weapons and armor that had conquered countless worlds. In a few seconds, it would learn what happened when you threatened humanity. Fire, he said quietly. The reality anchor beam struck the Valerian flagship, locking it into normal spacetime and stripping away its dimensional defenses. Suddenly vulnerable, the massive ship found itself targeted by 1,000,000 human weapons platforms. Admiral Kyo-sung felt his ship shudder as unknown forces took hold of it. Warning lights flashed across his bridge as systems began failing. His flagship, the pride of the Valerian Empire, was being held in place by technology he could not understand. Admiral, Commander Byung-ho said, his voice filled with fear. We're detecting massive energy buildup from the human platforms. They're preparing to fire. Kyo-sung looked at his screens and saw his death approaching. 1,000,000 points of light surrounded his fleet, each one aimed with perfect precision. The humans had not come to negotiate or surrender. They had come to destroy. All ships, he broadcast on the emergency frequency, retreat immediately. Full power to engines. We must escape this trap. But it was too late. The human defense network had finished charging its weapons. Space itself held the Valerian fleet in place, making escape impossible. The moment of truth had arrived. Admiral Dongmin looked at the tactical display showing 12,000 enemy ships trapped in the modified space around Earth. Each Valerian vessel glowed red on his screen, marked for destruction. The moment humanity had prepared for across 2 centuries had finally arrived. All defense platforms, he announced over the command network. You are authorized to fire at will. Commence total elimination of the invasion fleet. Across the solar system, millions of human weapons came online. Each defense platform was no bigger than a car, but they carried technology that could reshape the fundamental forces of the universe. Together, they represented the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. Commander So Young stood on her hidden space station, watching as power flowed through the quantum weapon network. Around her, technicians monitored energy levels that would have been impossible just decades ago. "Ma'am," her weapons officer reported, "all platforms show full charge. Target acquisition is complete on every enemy vessel." "Fire control, you may begin the attack sequence," So Young ordered. Sun Ho worked at his console on Earth's primary orbital defense platform. His fingers moved across controls that managed enough energy to power entire worlds. The platform he commanded was one of thousands hidden in Earth's orbital space, each one invisible to enemy sensors. "Platform 77 reporting ready to fire," he announced. "Target locked on enemy cruiser designated Victor 49. Similar reports came in from defense platforms throughout the solar system. Every human weapon was aimed with perfect precision at a specific Valerian ship. The attack would be coordinated down to the microsecond. Captain Wu Jin watched from the bridge of the Prometheus as the human fleet prepared for battle. His dreadnought was just one part of a massive military machine that had been built in secret over generations. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Admiral Dongmin is broadcasting the final attack order." "Understood," Wu Jin replied. "All weapons prepare to fire on my mark." Dr. Teho monitored the attack preparation from his underwater command center. Banks of quantum computers calculated the exact power needed to destroy each enemy vessel without damaging human ships or installations. "Energy distribution is optimal," he reported to Admiral Dongmin. "Each target will receive precisely the amount of force needed for complete destruction." "Excellent. Begin the countdown." The countdown began on every human military installation in the solar system. 10 seconds until the most one-sided battle in galactic history would begin and end. Admiral Kyo Sung stood on his flagship bridge, watching death approach from every direction. His sensors showed millions of human weapons aimed at his fleet. Each one carried energy readings that exceeded anything in the Valerian military database. "All ships emergency jump to hyperspace," he ordered desperately. "We can't, Admiral," his navigation officer replied with panic in his voice. "Something is interfering with our jump drives. Space itself won't let us leave." Commander Byung-ho stared at his tactical display. "Sir, our shields are failing. Whatever the humans did to us, our defensive systems can't handle it." Kyo-sung realized that his mighty fleet was about to be destroyed by creatures he had thought were primitives. 300 years of conquest were about to end in complete defeat. The countdown reached 0, space filled with light as 1,000,000 human weapons fired simultaneously. Beams of pure energy, streams of converted matter, and forces that twisted reality itself struck the Valerian fleet with perfect accuracy. The first wave of fire destroyed 1,000 enemy ships in the first second. Quantum disruptors erased cruisers from existence. Gravity manipulators crushed destroyers into points of light. Reality anchor beams made entire squadrons vulnerable to conventional weapons that struck with the power of stars. Commander Yu Jin coordinated the attack from her command post on one of Earth's moons. Her screen showed enemy ships disappearing faster than her computers could count them. "Sector 7 reports complete target elimination," she announced. "Moving to secondary targets, Sector 12 confirms destruction of enemy battlegroup Alpha." Came another report. "Sector 3 has eliminated the enemy supply fleet." The reports came in faster than human voices could speak them. Computer systems took over the coordination as the battle moved beyond the speed of human reaction. Artificial intelligences directed the fire of millions of weapons with precision no living being could match. Admiral Kyo Sung watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had conquered worlds were erased from existence in milliseconds. Weapons that could destroy planets had no effect on the human defense platforms that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "How long has this battle been going on?" he asked, his voice hollow with defeat. Commander Byung-ho checked his chronometer with shaking hands. 11 seconds, Admiral. 11 seconds. In 11 seconds, half of the mighty Valerian invasion fleet had been completely destroyed. Ships, crews, and weapons that had taken decades to build were gone as if they had never existed. Captain Wu Jin's dreadnought fired its main battery at a cluster of enemy battleships. The reality anchor beam locked them into normal space-time, making them vulnerable to the follow-up attack from nearby defense platforms. 6 massive warships vanished in flashes of converted matter. "Target eliminated," his weapons officer reported. "Selecting next target. Continue firing," Wu Jin ordered. Don't give them time to adapt or retreat. But the Valerians had no time for anything. The human attack was too fast, too precise, and too overwhelming. Technology that had taken them millennia to develop was being countered by weapons they could not even understand. Dr. Yunji monitored the space-time manipulation fields that kept the enemy fleet trapped. The Valerians were trying desperately to escape, but her technology held them in place like insects in amber. Enemy jump drive attempts are increasing, she reported. They're trying everything to break free. Can they succeed? Dr. Tejo asked. No, our spatial locks are absolute. They cannot leave until we allow it. The battle continued at a speed that defied comprehension. Human weapons fired, enemy ships died, and space filled with the light of matter being converted to energy. Each second saw hundreds of Valerian vessels reduced to nothing. Admiral Dongmin watched the tactical display as red dots disappeared from his screen. The invasion fleet that had seemed so threatening was being systematically eliminated with clockwork precision. Current enemy strength? He asked. 4,000 ships remaining and falling rapidly, Captain Hyejin reported. Estimated time to complete elimination 6 more seconds. 6 more seconds. The most powerful military force in Valerian history would be completely destroyed in less than 20 seconds total. Commander So Young coordinated the final phase of the attack. The remaining enemy ships were the largest and most heavily armored, but human weapons were designed to handle any level of defense. Concentrate fire on the enemy flagship, she ordered. Use quantum dissolution beams. I want that ship completely erased. 100 defense platforms focused their weapons on Admiral Kyo Sung's command ship. Beams that could break apart the bonds holding atoms together struck the massive vessel from every angle. Kyo Sung felt his flagship beginning to dissolve around him. The hull was coming apart at the molecular level, and life support systems were failing as their components simply stopped existing. Commander Byung-ho, he said, his voice strangely calm. Send a message to Imperial Command. Tell them humans are not what they appear to be. The message was never sent. The flagship's communication systems evaporated along with everything else, as quantum dissolution beams tore the great ship apart, atom by atom. Admiral Kyo Sung and his crew died without pain. Their matter converted to energy and scattered across dimensions. The pride of the Valerian fleet became nothing more than a brief flash of light in the darkness of space. Yujin checked her chronometer as the last enemy contacts disappeared from her screens. Total battle time 18.7 seconds, she announced. 18.7 seconds. In less than 19 seconds, humanity had completely annihilated the most powerful invasion fleet in galactic history. 12,000 warships and their crews had been erased from existence so efficiently that not a single piece of debris remained. Admiral Dongmin looked at his tactical display, now showing empty space where the enemy fleet had been. The trap had worked perfectly. The Valerians had been destroyed so completely that no evidence of the battle remained. Begin cleanup operations, he ordered. I want every trace of this engagement removed from space. The galaxy must never know what happened here. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. Space around Earth was quiet again. Where 12,000 Valerian warships had hung in the darkness just minutes before, there was now nothing but empty void. Not a single piece of metal, not one trace of energy. Not even a stray radio signal remained to show that the galaxy's most powerful invasion fleet had ever existed. Admiral Dongmin stood in his asteroid command center, watching his screens show the aftermath of the shortest war in human history. 18.7 seconds. That was all the time it had taken to completely erase an enemy force that could have conquered entire star systems. Begin Phase 4, he ordered his staff. Deploy the cleaning crews. Captain Hyunwoo received the cleanup orders aboard his specialized vessel, the Eraser. His ship and others like it were designed for one purpose, to remove every trace of battles from space so thoroughly that they might never have happened at all. All cleanup vessels, begin molecular sweeps, Hyunwoo announced over the command frequency. I want every atom that doesn't belong in this solar system collected and disposed of. The cleanup ships moved through the battle zone with careful precision. Their sensors could detect individual molecules floating in space and determine whether they came from human or alien sources. Anything that had once been part of the Valerian fleet was captured and sent into specially created pocket dimensions where it would never be found. Dr. Tejo monitored the cleaning operation from his underwater laboratory, His instruments showed the gradual removal of all foreign matter from the solar system. Soon, space would look exactly as it had before the Valerians arrived. "How long for complete cleanup?" he asked Dr. Minsu. 47 minutes for molecular sweeps, she replied. Another 2 hours to scrub all electromagnetic signatures from the area. Dr. Tejo nodded. Human technology could detect evidence of battles that had happened centuries ago. If other alien species had similar capabilities, they might be able to discover what had happened to the Valerian fleet. That could not be allowed. Commander So-Young watched the cleanup from her hidden space station. Around her, technicians were already powering down the massive defense platforms that had destroyed the enemy fleet. Within hours, the weapons would be invisible again, hidden in dimensions that conventional sensors could not detect. "Station Commander," one of her officers reported, "all weapons platforms have been secured. The defense network is returning to standby mode." "Excellent," So-Young replied. "Begin the camouflage sequence. I want us invisible again within the hour." The space station began to fade from normal reality, as quantum generators created fields that bent light and energy around it. Soon it would appear to be nothing more than empty space, just another patch of darkness in the void between stars. Admiral Jiwoo sat in her command center, composing the official report of humanity's first successful defense against galactic invasion. The document would be classified at the highest levels and stored in vaults that existed outside normal space-time. Battle duration, 18.7 seconds, she wrote. Enemy casualties, complete elimination of invasion force. Human casualties, 0. Enemy knowledge of human capabilities, eliminated along with enemy fleet. The report would join thousands of others in humanity's secret archives. For over 2 centuries, Earth had been preparing for contact with hostile alien civilizations. Every species that had attempted conquest had met the same fate as the Valerians. Complete destruction, followed by total concealment of the battle. Captain Wu Jin stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as his ship returned to its hidden dock inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The massive dreadnought had been invisible during the entire battle, its presence unknown to enemy sensors even as it helped coordinate their destruction. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving congratulations from Fleet Command. The Admiral wants to commend the crew for excellent performance." Wu Jin smiled. His crew had performed perfectly, but then again they had been training for this moment their entire careers. Every officer and sailor in the human fleet knew that someday they would face alien invaders, and they had prepared accordingly. Dr. Yunji worked at her console, gradually releasing the spatial manipulation fields that had trapped the Valerian fleet. Space-time slowly returned to its normal configuration, leaving no trace that it had ever been altered. "Dimensional locks disengaged," she reported. "Space has returned to standard physics throughout the solar system." The technology she controlled was humanity's greatest secret. The ability to manipulate space and time itself gave Earth's defenders advantages that no other species could match. Aliens who thought they understood the laws of physics were always surprised to discover that humans had learned to rewrite those laws. On Earth's surface, life continued normally. Most humans had no idea that their planet had just been attacked by a massive alien fleet. The battle had been fought entirely in space, hidden from civilian populations who believed they lived on a peaceful world with only basic space defenses. Minji worked in the intelligence center buried beneath the mountains of Alaska, monitoring alien communication networks throughout the galaxy. Her job was to watch for any signs that other species might have detected the battle or become suspicious of human capabilities. "Any chatter about missing Valerian fleets?" she asked her team. "Nothing yet," reported her assistant Sung Ho. "The Valerian Empire hasn't even noticed that their invasion force has gone silent. It will be weeks before they expect any reports." Minji nodded. By the time the Valerian Empire realized their fleet was missing, any evidence of what had happened would be long gone. They would assume the ships had been lost to navigation errors or equipment failures, hazards common enough in deep space exploration. Admiral Dongmin received the final cleanup reports in his command center. Every trace of the Valerian invasion had been erased from the solar system. Space was clean, the defense platforms were hidden, and Earth appeared once again to be a primitive world with only basic technology. "Operation Invisible Victory is complete," he announced to his staff. "All evidence has been eliminated. The invasion never happened." Captain Haijin looked at the tactical displays now showing peaceful space around Earth. "Admiral, when do you think the next attempt will come?" Dongmin considered the question. Human intelligence had identified 47 different alien species that might eventually threaten Earth. The Valyrians had been the most powerful, but they would not be the last. Within 5 years, he predicted, the galaxy is full of species that think conquest is easy. Eventually, another one will decide that Earth looks like an attractive target. And we'll be ready for them too. Hyjin said confidently, yes, we'll always be ready. Dr. Tejo completed his final analysis of the battle and filed his report with Earth's Defense Council. Humanity's weapons had performed flawlessly, eliminating an enemy fleet without damaging any human installations or revealing the true extent of Earth's military capabilities. Recommendation for future operations, he wrote, continue current strategy of appearing primitive while maintaining absolute technological superiority. No changes to defensive doctrine required. The strategy had worked for over 200 years. Let alien species see what they expected to see. A young civilization with simple technology and basic weapons. Never reveal the quantum computers, the dimensional manipulation devices, the reality-altering weapons, or the artificial intelligences that could think faster than biological minds could comprehend. Commander Yujin filed her weapons performance report from her lunar command post. Every human weapon system had functioned perfectly, from the smallest defense platforms to the massive dreadnoughts that remained hidden throughout the solar system. 0 malfunctions detected, she wrote. All weapons fired within acceptable parameters. Enemy elimination was achieved in optimal time with maximum efficiency. The report would help human engineers improve their weapons even further. Each battle provided data that made Earth's defenses stronger, faster, and more deadly. As the cleanup operations concluded, space around Earth returned to its normal appearance. Trade ships resumed their routes between planets. Communication satellites continued broadcasting entertainment and commercial messages. Defense platforms faded back into the dimensions where they waited for the next threat. To any alien observer, the solar system looked exactly as it always had. A quiet star system with a young species that had barely learned to travel between worlds. There was no sign that Earth possessed the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. No hint that humanity could destroy entire fleets in seconds. Admiral Dongmin looked at his final battle summary. The Valyrian invasion fleet had been completely eliminated in 18.7 seconds. 12,000 ships, millions of crew members, and weapons capable of destroying planets had been erased from existence so thoroughly that the universe itself seemed unaware they had ever existed. Another successful defense of Earth, he said quietly to himself. The galaxy still thinks we're primitives. That was exactly how humanity wanted it. Let other species fight each other with crude energy weapons and metal ships. Let them think that technology had limits and that physics could not be changed. Let them believe that a small blue world in an unremarkable star system posed no threat to anyone.